Are you tired of cramming for hours only to forget everything the next day? Discover the secret behind studying without memorizing and how it'll actually help you retain more than all that last-minute info dumping. Now, picture this. You walk into your next exam not with a head full of panic or a desperate prayer to remember what you studied last night, but feeling confident because you actually understand the material. No more endless hours memorizing facts you forget the second the test is over. Instead, you're using smarter strategies that not only help you pass, but also help you remember the material long after the test is done. Stick with me, and I'll show you how. Here's the thing. The key to mastering any subject isn't about memorizing every little detail. In fact, memorization can actually hurt you in the long run. So what should you be doing instead? That's exactly what I'm about to dive into, and I promise you'll want to stick around for this. So let's talk about active learning. Now, I know that sounds like one of those buzzwords teachers throw at you, but trust me, it's a game changer. Active learning isn't about passively sitting and hoping something sticks. It's about engaging with the material in ways that make it stick for real. This means you're not just reading and highlighting, hoping for the best. You're actually doing things that force your brain to think critically and apply the material. Instead of memorizing, active learning is about really understanding the concepts and making connections. The more connections you make, the easier it is to recall information later on. So how do we actually do this? Glad you asked. 1. Teach what you're learning. This one's golden. You know that moment when you're talking to a friend and you start explaining something you just learned, and halfway through, you realize you actually understand it better than you thought. That's because teaching forces you to break it down and make it simple. When you can explain something in your own words, you've really understood it. So grab a friend, roommate, or even your dog and teach the concept to them. I mean, if your dog can't grasp it, you probably need to go back to the drawing board, right? Example. Let's say you're studying psychology and you just learned about classical conditioning. Instead of just reading the chapter, go ahead and explain it to a friend. Say something like, so classical conditioning is when a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a response after being paired with a stimulus that naturally brings that response. You might throw in an example like Pavlov's dogs to really nail it. If your friend understands it after hearing your explanation, then you've definitely understood it. This method forces you to digest the material, not just regurgitate it. You're transforming what you learned into something that makes sense, which is key for long-term retention. 2. Practice retrieval. Instead of just rereading your notes for the 100th time, close them and try to remember everything you can. This is called retrieval practice, and it works wonders. By actively trying to pull information from memory, you're actually strengthening your brain's ability to retain that info. So when you're prepping for a test, try to write down everything you remember about a topic before you look at your notes. It'll feel tough at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Plus, it's way more effective than just rereading. For instance, if you're studying for a biology exam and you're trying to memorize the stages of mitosis, don't just read through your notes again. Instead, close them and try to write the stages from memory. When you're done, check your notes and fill in the gaps. By doing this, you're not only testing your memory, but you're also reinforcing the material in a way that rereading just won't do. The trick is to space out your retrieval attempts too. Research shows that the more you practice retrieving information over a longer period of time, spaced repetition, the more solid that information becomes in your long-term memory. 3. Make real-world connections. Here's the trick. The more you can relate what you're studying to something real, the more likely it is to stick. Let's say you're studying history. Instead of memorizing dates and names, think about why those events matter. How do they relate to current events? What would the world look like if that event never happened? When you relate the material to something you care about or understand, it's way easier to remember. Take a look at World War II. Instead of just memorizing the names of battles or the year the war started, think about the ripple effects that war had on the world, how it shaped international politics, led to the creation of the United Nations, and changed global economic policies. By making those connections, you'll understand the why behind the facts, and it'll be easier to recall the specifics when you need them. The same applies to subjects like math. Instead of just memorizing formulas, think about how they apply to real-world scenarios. For example, when studying algebra, think of it like a puzzle that needs solving, where the X is a missing piece you're trying to find to complete the whole picture. The connections you make with the real world will anchor your learning and make the material more meaningful. 4. Use active note-taking. Here's a big one. When you're in class, don't just copy down everything the professor says word for word. Instead, listen, then summarize in your own words.
Use bullet points, diagrams, and charts. You're not just transcribing, you're engaging. It forces you to really think about the material as it's being discussed. It'll also make it way easier to review later since you won't have to sift through pages of notes to find the important stuff. Let's say your professor is talking about the process of photosynthesis. Instead of just copying down, photosynthesis is the process by which plants use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. Jot down a simplified version like plants make food from sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. This happens in the chloroplasts. Then add a diagram that shows the process of photosynthesis.
Not only are you keeping your notes visual, but you're also summarizing key concepts in a way that makes it easier to remember. You can also use the Cornell method, which divides your notes into 3 sections: key points, notes, and a summary. This method encourages you to focus on the main ideas and put them into your own words, making your notes more effective for active review later. 5. Do practice problems. If you're studying math or any subject that involves problem solving, practice problems are your best friend. They let you apply what you're learning instead of just memorizing formulas. And here's the kicker: the more problems you solve, the better you'll understand the concepts behind them. You'll stop memorizing steps and start thinking critically about why those steps work. Example: imagine you're studying calculus and trying to understand integrals. Rather than memorizing the formula for integration, solve a variety of problems. Start with simple problems and gradually work your way up to more complex ones. After each one, ask yourself why that particular approach worked. What's the reasoning behind the math? Once you get the hang of the why, the formulas will start to make more sense, and you won't need to memorize them. When you apply practice problems to every subject, you're training your brain to think critically about the material, which will help you retain it better. Plus, practice problems will always be in the form of questions, which can prepare you for actual exam questions. Now that you know the secret to studying without memorizing, it's time to actually put it into action. Try using 1 or 2 of these techniques next time you study and watch how much easier it becomes. You'll feel more confident, and trust me, the material will actually stick. If you're ready to start studying smarter, not harder, hit that subscribe button for more tips and tricks on how to crush your exams without burning yourself out. Let's ditch the stress and start mastering our studies together. Happy studying, and I'll catch you in the next one.